What's up, y'all? The 2026 NBA trade deadline has officially ended, so I wanted to come and give my opinions on all of these trades. And I saw guys like Six Rings of Steel, Numbers on the Board, and the Deep Three all talk about this, but I've stayed away from those kind of videos to give my pure opinions without being influenced from those kind of guys. Starting off with the first trade, the Atlanta Hawks traded Trae Young to the Washington Wizards for CJ McCollum and Corey Kispert. And honestly, I do like this trade. Trae Young has been injured to start the season. He hasn't played too well. Whenever he did play, the Hawks weren't good. Whenever he was out, the Hawks were a lot better. So it made sense for the Atlanta Hawks to finally move on from Trae Young. And then they sent him to the Wizards for Corey Kispert and CJ McCollum, which you at least get an expiring deal so that you can start your rebuild around Jalen Johnson. And then Corey Kispert can stay. I thought he might have been moved by the deadline, but he can be a valuable asset for you. He hasn't looked too great in Atlanta this season, but overall, he's still a good shooter. And then for the Wizards, I think they had one of the best deadlines across the league. They move off of CJ McCollum as an expiring contract. They get Trae Young back, who I just really love Trae Young with this young team. He's a great floor-raising point guard, so I can only imagine what he'll do for the development of all of their young guys like Keyshawn George, Alex Sarr, even Bilal Coulibaly. So I'm very excited for this trade for Washington. The second trade was the Cleveland Cavaliers trading away DeAndre Hunter to the Sacramento Kings for Dennis Schroeder and Keon Ellis. And honestly, I'm not sure what's going on in Sacramento. They don't have too much value on their team. They still have Sabonis. They still have Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan on this roster past the trade deadline. And they just don't have much to do. Their future doesn't look too bright. Their present doesn't look too bright. And then you move away from Dennis Schroeder, who is not a top point guard, but he is just a serviceable backup point guard, which I love for the Cavs. And then Keon Ellis, who the media has been trying to get him moved forever. He hasn't been able to play in Sacramento, even under two different coaches between Mike Brown and Doug Christie. So you finally see him, and it just looks like he's a throw-in to this trade to the Cavaliers, really just a Dennis Schroeder trade. And DeAndre Hunter asked out for Cleveland, so being able to get Dennis Schroeder and Keon Ellis back is what I really like. I really wanted the Cavs to make a move at this deadline and just get something. They have had a really disappointing season. Right now, I think sitting at the 4th seed, but just a few weeks ago, they were in the play-in. So they had to make a move, and getting these two high-energy guys has looked great for them. We've already seen them play a game versus the Clippers, and it has looked good. Keon Ellis is a high-energy defensive guy, which we assumed. Dennis Schroeder has looked good as a backup point guard, which they ended up moving away from Darius Garland. But even if he was still on this roster, he has been highly injured, so you needed a backup point guard to spot those minutes whenever there was no Darius Garland. And so I'm just really excited for this trade for Cleveland. And then for Sacramento, I mean, I'm not sure what's going on over there. Then the first major trade of the last few days was the Memphis Grizzlies trading away Jaren Jackson Jr., John Conchar, Jock Landale, and Vince Williams Jr. to the Utah Jazz for Walter Clayton Jr., Kyle Anderson, Taylor Hendricks, Georges Niang, and 3 future first-round picks. And honestly, I love this trade for both sides. For Memphis, they really have to just tear down this team and start their rebuild. They traded away Dillon Brooks a few years ago. They traded away Desmond Bane last offseason. Now they're moving on from Jaren Jackson Jr., and I can only assume that Ja will be next. I thought he might have been moved by the deadline, but he's still on this roster, so I can only assume he'll be gone either in the offseason or by next deadline. And the Memphis Grizzlies just completely tear down this 2021 team with Jaren Jackson Jr. getting moved, and they get 3 future first-round picks in return for Jaren Jackson Jr. And so they're tied for the first most future first round picks in the league with OKC and Brooklyn. So they're having a great start to their rebuild. The players they got back don't look too great unless you want to believe in Walter Clayton Jr. still only in his rookie season. He's had a fan in me for a while after that national championship run. And then I mean, if you want to believe in Taylor Hendricks, who's still in his young career, but overall this is just a salary dump, quote unquote, with future first round picks. So I think I do like this for Memphis. And then for Utah, they're starting the end of their rebuild. They have Lauri Markkanen. Keontae George has taken a major step this season. I think that's why they want to expedite this young core in this rebuild. And now they add in Jaren Jackson Jr. You have Walker Kessler coming back next season. And then if you look at Tankathon, they have these 6 best odds, and they have a 1 through 8 protected pick. So I can only assume that in the future, that this season they will get a top pick. They will have Jaren Jackson Jr., Keontae George, Lauri Markkanen, Walker Kessler, and I am excited for the future of the Jazz basketball. The next trade is a trade between Chicago, Minnesota, and Detroit that sends Jaden Ivey and Mike Conley to the Bulls, Kevin Huerter and Dario Saric to the Pistons, and Detroit also receives a 2026 first-round protected swap from Minnesota. And realistically, this is not to the level of a Jaren Jackson Jr. trade, but I did want to include this because you finally move off of Jaden Ivey. He was looked at to be that secondary offensive guy next to Cade Cunningham, and this was really their last season that they could prove it. The Detroit Pistons have had a great season this year, being the one seed out east. They're looked at as one of the top teams to come out of the east, to come to the finals this season. So you had to make a move. I really wanted them to make a bigger move this season. Go get a Michael Porter Jr., ask around for a Lauri Markkanen to a lower degree. But they ended up only trading away Jaden Ivey, which I think is a little bit disappointing for Detroit from my point of view. But they add in Kevin Huerter, who they have needed shooting. But, I mean, Kevin Huerter is having a pretty down season this year. He hasn't been shooting as well as he has been in previous seasons. Right now, he's just a 31% three-point shooter for the Chicago Bulls. And, I mean, he's played 23 minutes a game. He's shooting 31% on 5 attempts a game. So it's just not the right shooter you want. I wanted a higher level shooter or even just a good secondary option next to Cade Cunningham, because if they want to make a run in the playoffs, if they want to reach the finals, they will need more offense outside of Cade Cunningham. Jalen Duren has made a big jump this season, and that's really just your second option on the team, and he's just a defensive monster. So realistically, you needed a second offensive option to really go well with Cade Cunningham. But then Mike Conley went back to the Timberwolves, and then Dario Saric got moved somewhere. He's not going to get PT. So really, just for this trade, all Detroit got was Kevin Huerter and a 2026 first-round protected swap from Minnesota, which, I mean, looking at Tankathon, Minnesota right now is the 22nd pick in the draft, 22nd pick in the draft. So you're not going to get too much value out of that pick. So it just seems like low value for Jaden Ivey, and then they didn't make any other moves. So I'm feeling a little bit worse about the Detroit Pistons championship odds. The next trade, the Chicago Bulls are trading away Nikola Vucevic and a second-round pick to the Boston Celtics for Anthony Simons and a second-round pick. And Anthony Simons is a guy who was looked at to be moved by the deadline whenever they traded for Jrue Holiday last season. But he has had a great season for the Boston Celtics. Right now, coming off their bench and being a 14-point-per-game scorer, shooting 39, almost 40% from three, and he's just been a flamethrower off the bench, having nights where he'll go off for 20, he'll go off for 30. So I really thought his value would be a little bit higher than just Vucevic and a second-round pick. But the Celtics did need to get their center for the future. Before the season started, everyone looked at them to get a center. But, I mean, obviously this would just be a down year for them is what everyone thought. And now they're at the top of the conference, being a top 3 seed in the East. So they wanted to make a move to get that center. And even if they don't have championship aspirations this season with no Jason Tatum coming back, next season they start with Vucevic at their center. They still have Jaylen Brown, still have Derek White, even Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, and now you add in Jason Tatum, and they are obviously going to be back in contention next season. And then for the Bulls, I mean, on first thought, looking at this trade and looking at all their trades they made, they had a lot of people in that guard room. And then we ended up seeing their game last night, and all of their guards looked great. So I'm excited to see what this looks like for both teams in the future. The next trade, and probably the biggest trade of the deadline, was the Los Angeles Clippers are trading James Harden to the Cleveland Cavaliers for Darius Garland and a second-round pick. And a lot of discourse around this trade on Twitter whenever it first happened was that you traded away a 26-year-old star for a 36-year-old star. And realistically, I don't see it as that much of a negative for the Cavaliers. They needed to make a move by the deadline, and I honestly thought they weren't breaking this core four up by the deadline. But I mean, whenever you get James Harden on the table, who asked out from Los Angeles, you had to at least bite at it. And if it does cost you a Darius Garland, you have to do it, because this season, like I said, the Cavs just have not looked great and not looked up to standards. Right now, they're still at the 4 seed, but I mean, you needed somebody, and you had Darius Garland, who was in and out of the lineup for you with both of his feet being injured. And James Harden now is coming into this team, and he has looked really good in Los Angeles. He's still a 25-point-per-game scorer, 5 rebounds, 8 assists, shooting 42% from the field. His shooting splits are not that great, but realistically, you add in James Harden, who is an all-star level guy. He didn't make it this year, but he is an all-star level guy, and you pair him with Donovan Mitchell, you pair him with Evan Mobley, and I think I'm not going to say it too soon because I do want to see this on court before I say they're back into contention, but they could easily be back into contention with adding in a James Harden. And then for the Clippers, I don't know how I want to feel about the Clippers. They ended up trading away two of their top guys. So now it's just Kawhi Leonard. And then Kawhi Leonard has an investigation looming around him where I don't know if Adam Silver is going to assess it at the All-Star break. I don't know if he's going to assess it in the offseason. But I'm only assuming that Kawhi Leonard's, at least his contract will be suspended. So you won't have Kawhi Leonard. You have Darius Garland, who is injury prone. You ended up adding in Benedict Mathurin for Zubac. I don't know if that's enough to keep you out of the lottery. The Clippers have been looking really good as of late. They started out so bad, but they ended up getting a lot of wins in about 20 game stretch, and now they're back to the 11th odds. They were in first, second. They had the best odds for a top pick just a few weeks into the season, and they've gone all the way down to 11. But now you trade away James Harden, you trade away Zubac, and we don't know what's going to happen to Kawhi Leonard, and then Darius Garland is still injured. So I'm only assuming OKC will get a top 7, top 6 pick this season. And I think that's just scary for the rest of the league. But I don't know what the future of the Clippers will really look like, especially accounting the Kawhi investigation. The next trade, and my favorite trade personally, the Dallas Mavericks are trading 10-time All-Star Anthony Davis, Jaden Hardy, D'Angelo Russell, and Dante Exum to the Washington Wizards for Chris Middleton, AJ Johnson, Malachi Branham, Marvin Bagley III, 2 first-round picks, and 3 second-rounders. And honestly, this is horrible value for Anthony Davis. You're receiving the 2026 Thunder pick, which right now is 30th and will stay 30th. They will absolutely be the best team in the league for the foreseeable future. And then you add a 2030 protected Warriors first round pick, which looks like a really nice pick until you look at the protections on it. It's 1 through 20 protected, and if it doesn't convey, it just turns into a second round pick for that year. So you have no Steph Curry in this year, and there's no way they're going to have one of the 10th best records in the NBA in 2030. So that pick will inevitably be a second round pick. But the reason I like this trade so much and why I like it, even though it's horrible value, is that you move off from Anthony Davis. You leave the Anthony Davis, Luka Doncic trade era. Nico Harrison was fired earlier in the season, and now you move off from Anthony Davis. So the only thing left, realistically, is now just Max Christie, who has been looking really good. And I saw people on Twitter talking about you traded away Luka Doncic for Chris Middleton, but I'm not doing that. I'm not extending this you traded Luka Doncic away for blank until the rest of the time. Okay, we could trade Chris Middleton, we could trade AJ Johnson, and then I'm not tying it to Luka Doncic anymore. Nico Harrison is gone, Anthony Davis is now gone, so we leave the Luka Doncic era. And then even for the Mavericks, you get Chris Middleton, Malachi Branham, Marvin Bagley III, which Malachi Branham has already been moved again for Tyus Jones. But you still get 2 expiring big contracts. So you're officially entering the rebuild around Cooper Flag. And he has been looking great this season. He has been amazing in the last 4 or so games. And really in the last, without counting the first month or so, he has looked like a real star. So you're building around Cooper Flag, who could potentially be a top 7 player in the world. Maybe I'm biased, but he has looked so good this season, just in his rookie season. So you officially enter the rebuild. You're building around Cooper Flag. You have Kyrie Irving coming back next year. You didn't trade away Daniel Gafford. You didn't trade away Klay Thompson. So I'm not sure if that's a good move or a bad move, because I've been on the boat to follow Cooper Flag's timeline. But regardless, those guys, we're not going to be competitive within the next 3 or so years. So I'm fine with leaving those guys on the roster until they finally start to, eventually retire. But still, you have 2 first-round picks, 3 second-rounders. So I like this trade for Dallas, specifically and entirely moving off from Anthony Davis. And then for the Wizards, they get back Anthony Davis, which I honestly really like for the Wizards. They have officially exited their rebuild as well as the Jazz. And I saw the one video I did watch during the trade season was the Kenny Beecham video where he talked about the Anthony Davis trade, and he paralleled it to the Utah Jazz trade for Jaren Jackson Jr. And what he said was, you add in these max player contracts where you get Anthony Davis with an extension, you give Trae Young an extension, and you already have Jaren Jackson Jr. making $50 million a year, but you expedite the duration of your rebuild around guys like Alex Sarr, Keyshawn George, because you have these max players, and those guys, those younger guys, are on rookie scale deals. So your salary books don't look that big. You exit the rebuild, you build around these young guys while having Anthony Davis and Trae Young, who are not only vets in the locker room but are still serviceable. I mean, Trae Young is still very young. He's nowhere near the age of Anthony Davis, just to preface it. But I mean, Trae Young is looks like he's declining. I want to see him back on the court for an extended period of time. But Anthony Davis obviously is declining, not only playing I think 29 games for the Mavericks in a year. So Anthony Davis is declining, but regardless, he's in that locker room, and I love the thought of Anthony Davis mentoring Alex Sarr. I think that will turn Alex Sarr into a real monster. You already see flashes of that defensive Anthony Davis type of build, and I just love that for the Washington Wizards. And then, I mean, Trae Young and Anthony Davis both will absolutely raise the floor of this young Wizards team. The next trade following the Anthony Davis trade was the Philadelphia 76ers trading guard Jared McCain to the Oklahoma City Thunder for a 2026 Rockets first round pick and 3 second round picks. And I saw a lot of people on the timeline being upset about this trade, not wanting Jared McCain to leave Philly. This was bad value, whatever. But realistically, I do love this trade. I mean, there's a lot of people who don't like the Thunder. I'm not a Thunder fan, but I'm not a Thunder hater either. So I do like seeing Jared McCain go to the Thunder. And realistically, I'm not sure how much playing time he will get. But with how beat up this Thunder team has been in the regular season, I think he will go in there and will get those reps. And unfortunately, he just wasn't able to do that in Philly this season. He ended up coming back from his injury. And I mean, they just drafted Jared McCain 3rd overall. So you're just replacing that guard that Jared McCain was. You have Quentin Grimes coming off the bench. You have obviously Tyrese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe starting together. So he just has not looked great in his games played coming back from his injury after looking amazing during a 23 game stretch, really about a 10 or 15 game stretch last season, looking like the front runner for Rookie of the Year. So you trade away Jared McCain and you just get the money off your books. You didn't get any players back in return. So I heard that's why you want to extend or give Quentin Grimes his contract since he's on a qualifying offer this season, or sign Dominic Barlow to a official deal since he's on a two-way. And then you just get more cap flexibility, and then you get a pick. I mean, at least you get a pick for Jared McCain. Right now, it is for the Rockets, it is the 23rd pick, which, I mean, I guess there still can be value. It's in the first round. But regardless, you move off of Jared McCain. And I saw a quote that said Daryl Morey was selling high on Jared McCain. I don't think that's the case. He's a year 2 guy. I think we will absolutely see him develop and look good in years' time. For the Thunder, I think he doesn't get the reps that I wanted him to get. I wish he would have went to a bottom feeder team to really take over, quote unquote, take over a franchise if the ability is there. But now he's playing behind Shea. He's playing behind Queso, Caruso, all of those guys. But regardless, with looking at how beat up this Thunder team is right now, I think he will get the reps in the regular season, going into the All-Star break, going into the postseason possibly, hopefully not. But regardless, you get him in the Thunder room, and I think that will be good for his development and for the OKC Thunder, since they did need shooting. They desperately needed shooting. They desperately needed an offensive creator outside of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So, I mean, Jared McCain is just to a very lower level of what I wanted them to get. But regardless, you can see the flashes in Jared McCain to be that type of guy. He's just not there yet. And I wish they would have made another move for an MPJ, for a real shooter, for a real offensive option. But regardless, this is still a fine trade to make, I think, for both sides. The next trade is the Bulls trading away Kobe White and Mike Conley to the Charlotte Hornets for Colin Sexton, Ousmane Dieng, and 3 second-round picks. And I mean, honestly, I've seen a lot of people on the timeline really upset about this trade, and I completely understand. You trade away Kobe White, who has been in Chicago for, I don't know how long he's been in the league, but 5+ years? Am I right? For 6 years now. So you trade him away for Colin Sexton. I don't understand this from the Bulls. 3 second-round picks. You should absolutely be getting a first-round pick for Kobe White. He has had a quote-unquote down year this season. He's been highly injured, coming off the bench on a minutes restriction for 3 games. And I mean, he's still an 18.5-point scorer. He still should absolutely be respected with a first-round pick from Charlotte. And then for Charlotte, you get in Kobe White, who is a really good basketball player, and it only took Colin Sexton, Ousmane Dieng, who wasn't even on your roster, and 3 second round picks. So you add in Kobe White, and I'm not sure where he will play, if it's off the bench behind LaMelo, Con, because they have been absolutely rolling. Right now they're on an 8 game win streak, beating teams like these Spurs and just really phenomenal teams, really tough teams. So you add in Kobe White to play behind LaMelo Ball, Con Knipple, Miles Bridges, Brandon Miller, and Musa Diabate. So I think this will be a great fit for them. You trade away your backup point guard and get an even better one, get a way better one. So I am excited for this for the Hornets to see what that team will eventually look like. I'm very excited for Hornets basketball within the next few years. And then I think for the Bulls, this has just been a horrible trade. The next trade is the Golden State Warriors trading away Jonathan Kuminga and Buddy Hield to the Atlanta Hawks for Kristaps Porzingis. And I mean, honestly, this isn't too big of a trade. It's a Kristaps Porzingis trade who's on an expiring deal. I don't know how long he will play in Golden State. But the reason I add this is because you finally trade away Jonathan Kuminga. He has been in rumors all season, all last season, just not being able to crack the rotation. Steve Kerr has not wanted to play Jonathan Kuminga, not build his value up. And then through the first week or so, he has looked really good. And then he eventually just sits on the bench. So I'm glad to see Jonathan Kuminga finally go to another team, hopefully get more opportunity on the court. And then you throw in Buddy Hield to make the money work. And then for the Golden State Warriors, you get Kristaps Porzingis. And honestly, this was really the only move Golden State made at the deadline other than trading away Trace Jackson Davis, who did not play. But you add in Kristaps Porzingis. I don't know how many games he will play. He's been ill pretty much every single game this season. I don't know what his games played is at right now. But I'm just for Mike Dunleavy, he's played 17 games this season. But for Mike Dunleavy, you don't even want to build around this Steph Curry timeline, which has been an issue for pretty much everyone in the media space, that you don't want to capitalize on Steph Curry, who is an all-star starter at 37 years old. He didn't trade away a pick this offseason. He gave up Draymond Green for Giannis Antetokounmpo and thought that would work. And then even whenever that didn't work, you just trade away Jonathan Kuminga and Buddy Hield for just Kristaps Porzingis, who will not play more than 5 games for you this season. He will be expiring in the offseason. I doubt they sign him back. So realistically, this is just an overall bad deadline for the Hawks or for the Warriors. And then this is the only good trade that they made. It's finally getting off of Jonathan Kuminga. You just add in Buddy Hield, who hasn't looked great this season. Jimmy Butler went down. So this Warriors team is going to be possibly in the play-in, possibly out of the playoffs this season, just because you don't want to capitalize on this Steph Curry timeline whenever he's playing amazing at 37 years old. So I hope in the offseason they can make a move, and hopefully Steph Curry at 38 years old will look just as good. The next trade is the Minnesota Timberwolves traded Rob Dillingham, Leonard Miller, and 4 second-round picks to Chicago for Ayo Dosunmu and Julian Phillips. And this is another trade from the Chicago Bulls where, look, the Bulls have added 9 first-round picks in the last 4 weeks, 14 total, or second-round picks, and they just did not get a first. They had one of the most valuable rosters throughout up and down throughout the trade deadline. And to sell off on most of your guys, which most of your fans wanted you to do, and still only get back second round picks is insane. You had Vucevic, who is pretty valuable. He's a good center on the market. Ayo Dosunmu has played amazing this season, coming off the bench for you, being a flamethrower, shooting 45% from 3, 50% from the field, 15 points per game, 3.5 assists, and you just get second round picks back. And I think that is the frustration with Chicago Bulls fan, where a few days ago, before the official real trade season started, and before the last few days before leading up to the deadline, the Chicago Bulls said that they might want to buy at the deadline and start to be a playoff team, which everyone knew they could not be a playoff team. They could not be taken serious in a playoff series if they even get there. But then they ended up selling anyways, and selling off Ayo Dosunmu, selling off Kobe White, and you still don't even get the value that you should get back. I mean, even Kevin Huerter is an expiring deal, and you didn't get back much for him either. So overall, I just hate the Chicago Bulls deadline, getting off of your good guys, selling high on them, and not getting too much in return. You get Rob Dillingham, who one of my friends asked me whenever this trade dropped, why the Minnesota Timberwolves gave up on Rob Dillingham so early. He was a 2024 draft pick, so he's just in year 2. And I told him that the Minnesota Timberwolves are trying to compete. The Timberwolves don't have time to wait around for Rob Dillingham to develop. They tried that, and this was his season where he had to come out and look great. They lost Nickeil Alexander-Walker in the offseason. Mike Conley was only getting older, so it was time for Rob Dillingham to really step up. They ended up signing Bones Hyland for a real backup and a safety blanket, and he has looked even better than Rob Dillingham this season, and that's saying something. So you unfortunately just had to give up on Rob Dillingham. And I hope he can look good in Chicago. I'm not sure how many minutes he will get in Chicago. I don't think he's a priority on their guard room with Anthony Simons and with Jaden Ivey. I'm not sure he's really the top priority over there. So I'm not sure how well he will develop. I've been a Rob Dillingham fan for a few years now, all the way back until he was playing at Donda Academy. So I've always wanted to see Rob Dillingham really develop into a solid NBA player, but he just in his opportunity given, he has not looked great. So they eventually move off from Rob Dillingham, and they were a team that I wanted to really get a point guard at the trade deadline to push for that championship aspiration that they have. I'm not sure if they are looked at as contenders this season. I wouldn't put them in that bubble just yet. But they have went to back-to-back Western Conference Finals, so they are going to compete. They are going to try to get to that mountaintop. And I mean, Ayo Dosunmu isn't the stereotypical true point guard that Minnesota should have been completely after, but he still is a good point guard. He is a shooter. He is a scorer. He's just not that type of passer that I would want to see from Minnesota since they already have Anthony Edwards. But overall, I am very excited for what this looks like for Minnesota. And I mean, they only gave up Rob Dillingham and Leonard Miller and 4 second-round picks. So I do enjoy this trade for Minnesota. And for the Bulls, I think you could have just gotten more for, I mean, really all your assets, but especially Ayo Dosunmu, Coby White, and Vucevic. The next trade is one that is very minor. I won't talk about it for too long, but it is the New Orleans Pelicans trading Jose Alvarado to the New York Knicks. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is because I think Jose Alvarado in New York will look pretty nice. He's that type of gritty defender that New York needs, that is part of a New York culture. So I am excited to see him in New York. And the Pelicans had a horrible deadline. They had Herb Jones. They had Trey Murphy, some of the most valuable names on the market, and ended up saying they are a playoff team. Now, the final trade, one that broke just a few minutes before the NBA trade deadline, is the Clippers trading away Ivica Zubac to the Indiana Pacers, and they get back Benedict Mathurin, Isaiah Jackson, 2 first-round picks, and 1 second-round pick to the Clippers for Zubac and Kobe Brown. And this was a trade where the Pacers just went for a top-tier center. The whole conversation around the Pacers and trading with the Pacers is that you needed a center. You lose Miles Turner in the offseason, and this season was obviously looked at as a down year, which they are taking pretty seriously right now, having the third worst record in the NBA. So this was looked at as a down year, and you had to make a move either at this deadline or in the offseason to improve that center position so that you have Tyrese Halliburton coming back and you are back into playoff Eastern Conference Finals contention with Tyrese Halliburton and a new center, with Pascal Siakam there, with Andrew Nembhard, with Aaron Nesmith. And Benedict Mathurin just unfortunately was the odd man out of this team. He's not looked great this season. He was looked at to make a jump without having Tyrese Halliburton on the court. It was like him and Nembhard who would make a jump, and he just is staying pretty stagnant. He hasn't played too many games this season, so that's why you ended up having to move away from Benedict Mathurin. And then for the Clippers, they get back Benedict Mathurin, which the same thing with the Darius Garland situation. I'm not sure how to grade the Clippers and their future with these young guys. I think if the punishment for the Kawhi deal is his contract suspended, no first-round picks are removed, which they don't have too many anyways. But regardless, no first-round picks are taken away. I think this would look really good because you have building blocks for a potential rebuild after you already traded away Zubac, you already traded away Harden, and then we don't know what's going to happen with Kawhi. So to say there's no Kawhi, those top 3 guys are no longer there. You have Benedict Mathurin, you have Derrick Jones Jr., you have Darius Garland for a solid young core to at least keep you out of the bottom 5-4 seed out west. So that is the end of me grading every single trade from the 2026 NBA trade deadline. Make sure y'all let me know what y'all think down below in the comments, and make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe.